Afternoon, everyone. We are joined here with 13-time PGA Tour winner and world number 5, Justin Rose. Justin, welcome, making your 21st start here at the Players Championship. What is it like to be back?
Always great to be back. I mean, I feel like this tournament has evolved so much through the years, but kind of got to the point where, you know, you sort of drive up through the driveway, sort of you see the golf course unfold in front of you. It always looks perfect. I feel like the character of the course has changed for the better over the years, and yeah, it's just an inspiring place to kind of walk, you know, drive up the drive. So yeah, excited to be back.
Throughout your starts, any specific or favorite memories throughout the years?
No, sparse on great memories here. You know, I feel like it's a course that, you know, I love it actually. I think it's a great, one of the best courses that we play on tour. I think it's very fitting for this championship. It suits all types of players. But yeah, it's tricky as well. You know, I feel like it's a venue that I've sort of would like to figure out a bit better this year. That is for sure. I've had some good weeks here, some great rounds. But yeah, we'd love to put 4 together this week.
Perfect. With that, we're going to go and open up with questions, starting here on the left side here with Gary.
Hey, Justin, it's been feast or famine for you in this tournament. You know, you've got some top tens and missed some cuts. When things are going well for you, when you're comfortable out there, what are you doing well to score?
Yeah, I think it's feast or famine is a little bit risk and reward. Really, I think is the ultimate way to play this golf course. You got to obviously do a lot of things well to put. You got to put the ball in the fairway off the tee, you know, and that doesn't mean you have to drive. You know, hit drivers everywhere. There's a lot of holes that you can just get the ball in play with, whether it be an iron or a fairway wood. And then, you know, I like the golf course when it has just that little bit of moisture in it, to the point where you can use the sideboards and the side slopes to feed the ball kind of close to the hole. You know, 13th par 3, for example, being able to use the side hill to kind of come down to that left pin. Sometimes when it gets really, really, really firm, the ball skips through those sideboards. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, from the fairway, if you're playing well, you can really attack those pins, those feeder pins, much like Augusta actually, very second shot golf course from that point of view. And I guess if you're you're playing well, making birdies, doing well in the tournament, but if you're a little bit off your game, you're missing those opportunities to make those easy birdies when they should come around. I feel like this golf course does offer a lot of opportunities, but on the flip side of that, there's trouble everywhere too.
Over to the right side, we have Sean.
Hi, Justin. In 21 previous appearances, what's the single most important thing you've learned?
It's a good question. I mean, Pete Dye, I think, is a master from that point of view. Respecting the golf course, respecting certain pin placements. You know, the way the ball falls into bunkers here, you fall down into those flat spots, and you don't often get like an upside, you know, little upslope. Which, if you short side yourself, sometimes you're on a little upslope, can be quite an easy up and down. I feel like this golf course doesn't offer you that. So there's certain holes where you're down below the green. You know, the par 5 11th hole, the par 3 3rd hole, the left of the first hole. Even when you're going in there with a wedge to a tight pin, you know that if you hit it into the middle of the green, it's going to feed away 20, 25 feet. So it's very tempting to try to hit it up that 8-foot sliver of green. But, you know, if you hit that great shot, sure, you get rewarded. But if you just miss left, it's pretty certain bogey. So, you know, respecting the golf course, or respecting how you're feeling at a certain point in your round.
Can I have a follow-up quickly? Brooks was in here an hour or so ago and said he's had an 8 and a 7 on the 17th. Not to bring up bad memories, but can you remember your worst scores on that hole?
I think one of the maybe one of my survival instincts, and the reason I've been on tour so long, is I don't have a great memory. You know, I think probably that was starting my career with 21 missed cuts. I learned to not dwell too much on past mistakes, but I don't really remember. I know, I think maybe, I remember last year, I think I hit in the water close to the cut line on Friday. You know, it's yeah, it's a tough hole, and I think it's the kind of hole that conditions make it tough. You play it on a Tuesday, greens are relatively soft. You know, there's not much to it. Put a back pin there. You know you don't want to have that tough putt. You know, you're still trying to hit the right shot, but the greens are getting firmer. You slightly misjudge the wind by a few yards. Yeah, suddenly that green plays small, which is obviously the beauty of the hole and why we're talking about it, because yeah, it does play tough some days.
Going right here in the middle, Ryan.
Justin, you've talked about how major championships and big events like this have become really important to you now as your career's evolved. Is there anything specifically in the offseason this year you've done to get ready for this year's majors that is different than in years past, picking up on, experience in the last couple of years and how you've been preparing for those events?
No, I really don't think there's been anything different this particular off-season. I would say it's been a sort of an overall shift in my mentality the last few seasons. So, but it's about pacing yourself. It's about, finding those rhythms of how, you like to prepare for tournaments. Obviously, you want to play well every single week, for sure, but you do potentially roll the dice on, back front loading going into certain weeks, or realizing, for me, it seems to be that I play well on the second week after a break, so I'm trying to sort of go with those rhythms. I mean, I'm always teed up on, no matter when I play, thinking I'm prepared and I'm ready to play well, but, you've got to kind of like build your schedule around what historically and what the data tells you that, your most likely chance of performing on a given week. So really that's all I'm thinking about this year with the majors. I'm not really trying to overhype them as well. Of course, they're huge focuses, but at the same time, you can't, you want to be 100% prepared. They are massively in my thinking, but when it gets to the moment, you have to go out and execute. So if you build it up too much, you can get in your own way. So I haven't really done anything too different, to be honest.
In the left here with Cameron.
Justin, there's been some talk this week among some players about maybe the rough being a tidbit longer than it has been in the past. From what you've seen so far, do you think that maybe the rough will play more penal this week than it has?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't been out there. Just got in today. I've heard that it's 4.5 inches, not 4 inches, so I think it's a conscious decision to go a tiny bit longer this year. I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's just going from what Fuchs told me today. But I think he's been out there and he felt like it was a little bit longer, yeah. So emphasis is on hitting the fairway. This is a golf course that I've always feel like that has been first and foremost, get the ball on the fairway. So it doesn't change your strategy, but it might change the penal side of if you aren't able to do, part one of your job, which is get the ball in play.
And moving back over to the right side, we have Mark.
Justin, as one of the more elder statesmen out here, do you have any expectations for Brian Rolap's news conference tomorrow? And it seems like the buzzwords on potential changes have been scarcity, owning the summer, those sort of things. What are your expectations for any changes?
Well, yeah, I mean, just some news would be obviously great. I know that, and obviously the communication's been good. I just wonder if there is actually any update, significant update. And I know in order to get a significant update, there's a lot of things that have to fall into place, and I think obviously the guys behind the scenes, the competitions committee or the future competitions committee, I think it's called, have clearly been trying to figure out what our best product is. And I don't know if we're any closer to sort of announcing what that may or may not look like. There's obviously been a push for a number of years now of trying to find a product or a tour or a whatever that the top players play more often together. And I think we have done that with the elevated events for sure, but then obviously that's not a perfect system in terms of the rest of the tour as well. That, sort of you're in it and then the other guys that aren't in it. It's not perfect yet. So I think in order to get there, there's obviously been some trial and error through the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. But I think we're getting to a good place as a tour. I think competition is so strong out here. That's the main thing. That's the best thing. There's tons of history out here. There's tons of things to build on. And I think the future's bright. But, yeah, I'd be excited about it for sure. For me, in my career, being able to play a more tightly focused schedule would be great. Give a little bit back to the family after the certain period of time. But, yeah, also playing in a very condensed schedule, too, means that it's like most sports leagues, there's not a lot of wiggle room in there. You're going to have to pretty much be all in, week in, week out. So there's going to be some give and take no matter what.
Moving back over to the left side.
Justin, as a major champion,
Right behind.
as a major champion and Olympic gold medalist, where do you put the players in the golfing firmament?
Yeah, really good question. Obviously, for me, I dreamt about major championships as a kid, Ryder Cups. Olympics was obviously clearly never a thing growing up, but it's become a thing. Obviously, being the first guy to win a gold in a long, long, long time, 112 years. I hoped that it would become a thing. And obviously, we've had two great champions since me and, you know, Xander and Scotty. And I think the Olympics has become a thing that's grown in my career, and sort of the validity of it has grown. So the Players' Championship has had that, but also it's also been on the up as well. The stature of this tournament has grown and grown and grown and grown as well. And, you know, it'd be right there, of course. You know, I'm always going to say a major championship just because of the years on being on the putting green trying to win the Open in my own mind is always going to put that like at the peak of my to-do list. But at the same time, the Players' Championship is, you know, alongside a FedEx Cup, alongside an Olympic gold, alongside all of those things, you know, a Players' Championship would be right there.
Just jumping up a row to Tom.
Justin, are you one who likes to go to Augusta to play before the Masters? And what would be the advantages? And Brooks even said he sees it sometimes as a disadvantage because things might change if you go 2 weeks out, 2 weeks later. What is your feeling on that?
My feeling is I like to go just to go. You know, why wouldn't you? You know, as a golf fan, just if you can have a chance to play Augusta National, you're like, yeah, well, sure, let's do it. So I think there's always a green or two that they tend to renew or refresh or rebuild. So you're just often looking for slight, subtle, nuanced changes to those greens. They don't try to change them, you know, the topography of them too much, but it's not a perfect science to relay a green, you know, so you're kind of always trying to remember the breaks, or there might be subtle notes that you had on previous pin placements. You're just trying to make sure and double check that those parameters of the putts that you've hit in the past are still somewhat similar. So those would be the things that I would do if I do go ahead of time, but those are also the things I can do the week of. So it depends. I don't have a plan to go this year prior to the Masters, and I'm playing again Valero Texas Open the week before, so I may well be going in there on Monday afternoon. So, but I have enjoyed my trips, my scouting trips in the past, but they've been in recent years more for fun than necessity. Excuse me.
Bob here in the very front.
Last week we got the news about Luke coming back as captain. I know that you pretty quickly ruled it out, but did you ever speak to them formally about it? Did you ever really consider it?
Well, I think first and foremost, it was always Luke's decision to make before it was anybody else's decision to sort of make. I'm sure, you know, they sounded me out to see where my thinking was for sure, but I think it was always going to be Luke's done such an incredible job the last 3 or 4 years, however long he was in his position. He gets first call, you know, which I think is absolutely right. And I think from my point of view, it, you know, might have been good timing, but I think also at the same time I still believe that I can play in another 1 or 2 or more. Let's see, who knows? I don't really want to put a time limit on it, but certainly the next one I would love to have a crack at for sure as a player. And that's been the advice from all the captains and vice captains and players that I've played with through the years on Team Europe. They're like, nothing trumps playing, you know. So that's always going to be the ultimate goal. But yeah, like I said, Luke's decision, and I'm glad he's doing it because, you know, he's obviously what he's brought to the captaincy is big shoes to fill from that point of view. And obviously the next guy that takes on that responsibility, it's pretty much a full-time job from that point of view. So to do it justice, you want to be ready and give it everything.
I also wondered your reaction to your teammate, Jon Rahm. I mean, he had some pretty extensive comments last week about his situation with the deal that he decided not to take from the tour, and obviously there's a long way to go, but it does still put in doubt the Ryder Cup. Do you have any sense how you'd like to see that go, or what you'd like to see him do?
Yeah, listen, I'd like to see John. How many guys? 8, and the other 7 did it. So obviously 8 did it and John didn't. So I mean, there's pretty decent precedent that the deal wasn't outrageous that they were proposing, but at the same time, you know, I'd like to see John pay his fines for sure and be a part of the Ryder Cup. You know, for me, obviously, playing on Live was a decision that he made and wanted to make, and fair play to him for making it, and good for him. You know, he's playing good golf out there, he's winning, he's making a lot of money, and he's, you know, you can't argue and you can't knock what he's been able to achieve out there. So I would just see it as a cost of doing business for John. Like, for me, being in the Ryder Cup is more than about money. What I would say where he may have a point is the tour making him play extra events. Maybe he has a point there, you know. So maybe there's some middle ground where he do his best to support the tour as and when, but not necessarily have that hung over his head. But paying his fines is obviously step number one.
Just going right behind Bob.
Justin, I just want to follow up on Mark's question about Brian Roloff and tomorrow's press conference. So what would you like to hear him say? What would you like to see the tour, or how would you like to see it continue to evolve?
I just think, well, I'd like it to be sort of well thought through, which I think it is. I think everyone is doing a good job. We've been iterating for a while now, and so, a little bit like the FedEx Cup too. We keep iterating to find the best version of it, and you think you have, and then tweaks are always inevitable. But I feel like, for the fans' sake and the players' sake, just to sort of get some clarity. We're halfway through, well, not halfway through the season, but we kind of feel like we're getting into the meat of the season now. So I think it's probably fair to the players to know if there's going to be a change this year or next year, or is it going to be the year after, or whatever it is. What's at stake. So I think now would be a good time just to get some clarity from a player's point of view, but obviously from a fan's point of view, because ultimately that's Brian's job, is to grow this tour and engage golf's doing well as a sport, and we want the PGA Tour to do well as a business. So that's the key driver for him, and obviously the players are engaged more in the business than they've ever been. So getting the product right is hugely important.
We'll go here on the left. We'll wrap up with Alex, unless there are any others.
Justin, you just said, tweaks are inevitable. Do you foresee these changes as tweaks, or do you see them more as a full-blown rehaul of what's been going on over the last 20 years?
I hope it's a simplification, is what I hope it is. I feel like the tours, there's a lot more opportunity out here than there has been, ever, in terms of the quality of events, the quality of fields that we're getting together on a more regular basis, the money that we're playing for. So there's a lot of opportunity, but it feels quite complex and quite A and B, and players are in or they're out, and it's quite, it's a little bit of a too many layers to it, I think. So it would just be nice to sort of have all of the opportunity and upside with just a more simplified system. That's what I would hope for. So don't really know where we'll net out on that, but I think sitting here as a player, we've got to realize that we've been pretty fortunate as well the last 5 years. The iterating is not necessarily a bad thing, but it would be nice just to kind of get it to a very simple structure where the fans can follow, the players know where they stand, and we go, every season, it's like a, well, I want to say level playing field, not that it's not now, but a simple structure where you can sit down in January and go, right, that's my schedule, and it doesn't necessarily depend too much on how I play that week and that week and that week, and then what I get, gain entry into. It's like, that's the schedule.
One last thing, because you're a European Tour player, you obviously have some allegiance to that. Do you think that at the end of the day, that should also be factored in, what goes on with the European Tour, how that could be a better tour because of the benefits that you come out here out of the PGA Tour?
Yeah, I always hope that the DP World Tour, European Tour, will be a viable, strong tour. It's got great history as well, and it's obviously been a partnership with the PGA Tour in the last 5 years or so. It doesn't necessarily look like, the PGA Tour obviously do have to sort of prop up the European Tour right now for sure, but. I will, I don't know what I would love to know what my life looks like for the next few years, but I would love to continue to support the European Tour as best I can as well going forward. So, sort of right now it feels like my job is to secure, my PGA Tour status and all of those things January to August, and then return my attentions to what I can then sort of fulfill my obligations to the European Tour after that. So. Again, until I really know what this tour looks like going forward, it's hard to know how that tour gets impacted from my own playing schedule, let alone as a business, and let alone how the future looks between the two tours. Yeah, I don't know how that will play out.
Perfect. That's all the questions we have. As always, Justin, thank you for the time.
Cool, yeah, thank you.